He was a military man, a courtier, a libertine, a writer, and a French academician. His life was punctuated by battles, duels, amorous affairs, and scandals. His cousin, the Marquise de Sévigné, even forged from his patronymic the word rabutinage and the verb rabutiner, which means to mock one's neighbor. A brief look at the most disreputable of Burgundian writers. Roger de Bussy-Rabutin. Born in 1618 at the Épery Castle near Autun, he is the third son of Diane de Cugnac and Léonore de Rabutin. The death of his brothers leaves him as the sole heir of the family. In 1634, he takes command of the Bussy-Rabutin regiment, raised by his father in 1627, under the orders of the Duke of La Force. Then, of the great Condé and his friend the Marshal de Bassompierre, he participates in the 30 Years' War and the Franco-Spanish War. During the Fronde, he quickly rallies to the young King Louis XIV. He achieves the rank of Lieutenant General of the armies, but will never be rewarded with a marshalate. The fault lies with his terrible habit of rabutinating. Indeed, he cannot resist the urge to compose songs and satirical, even scathing verses targeting military men and courtiers. The Marshal de Turenne, who commands him in Flanders in 1657 and 1658, will not forgive him for this. A long-time gallant and libertine, he has already brushed with scandal in 1646 by abducting a young widow of 20 years old, whom he imagined shared his passions. But the fair one forgave him, and he paid a solid compensation to the family. Yet in 1659, he is implicated in a new affair known as the debauchery of Roissy. During Holy Week, at the invitation of the Duke of Vivonne, first gentleman of the King's Chamber, a gigantic orgy takes place in the Caraman's castle at Roissy. There is excessive eating, enormous drinking, and much bedding. Mazarin's nephew is part of it, as well as one of the court's chaplains, who would have even baptized a suckling pig. The pious party, powerful in the entourage of Queen Anne of Austria, is beside itself, and with reason it must be acknowledged. Mazarin, to whom some murderous rabutinages held by the turbulent Bussy-Rabutin are reported, imposes upon him a first exile on his Burgundian estates, far from court. Bussy-Rabutin puts this trial to good use to draft his famous amorous History of the Gauls. The work is a scandalous chronicle of court manners, embellished with a few acid portraits, including that of his cousin, Madame de Sévigné, which will cause a temporary quarrel between the two. A foolish man awake, he writes of her, will always carry the day with her over an honest, serious man. The gaiety of people concerns her. She will not judge whether one understands what she says. The greatest mark of wit one can give her is to have admiration for her. She loves incense. She loves being loved, and for that she sows in order to reap. She gives praise in order to receive it. She generally loves all men, whatever age, whatever birth, and whatever merit they have, and whatever profession they may have. All is good to her, from the royal mantle to the cassock, from the scepter to the inkwell. The pseudonyms he gives to one and another are too transparent for one to be mistaken. The text has no intention of being published anyway. Bussy-Rabutin wrote it to entertain his mistress, Madame de Montglat, convalescing after a long illness. But the manuscript is recopied by the perfidious Marquise de la Baume, who has it printed. However, contrary to a persistent legend, it is not this pamphlet that brings Bussy-Rabutin his complete disgrace. Indeed, the king, though also scratched himself, was greatly amused by it. Moreover, he had appreciated an earlier work, The Maxims of Love, which earned him in 1665 his election to the French Academy at seat number 20. But if he is quick to scratch others, Bussy-Rabutin, on the other hand, has a high opinion of himself and paints in his amorous History of the Gauls this flattering self-portrait. Roger de Bussy-Rabutin, Count of Bussy, Master of Camp of the Light Cavalry, had great and gentle eyes, a well-made mouth, a large nose tending toward aquiline, and an advanced forehead, an open face, a happy countenance, blonde hair fine and light. He had in his mind delicacy and strength, gaiety and cheerfulness. He spoke well. He wrote correctly and pleasantly. He was born gentle, but the envious that his merit had made him had embittered him, so that he willingly rejoiced with his friends at the expense of people he did not like. He was a good friend and regular. He was brave without ostentation. He loved pleasures more than fortune, but he loved glory more than pleasures. He was gallant with all ladies and very civil. However, the following year, another pamphlet circulates, entitled Gallant France. The anonymous text stages royal loves with a certain vulgarity of language. One lends only to the rich, and Bussy-Rabutin is accused of being its author. The instigator, if not the author himself, seems in reality to have been the Prince of Condé. This time the measure is full. The king did not like the charge. Too crude, the pious party unleashes itself, and the friends of the reckless Burgundian tire of his repeated indiscretions. Stripped of all his charges and functions, he was notably intendant of the king for Nivernais. Bussy-Rabutin is exiled to his estates after a stay of 13 months in the Bastille. He chafes at the bit, although he writes and claims otherwise, but he repeats it too often for it to be sincere. An honest man does all he can to advance himself, and rises above ill success when he has not succeeded, he writes to his cousin on May 23, 1667. Bussy-Rabutin will therefore devote his 17 years of exile to writing and beautifying his residence of Bussy-le-Grand in the Auxois. A fortified house built in the 12th century, the building was arranged into a residential castle in the 15th century. Apart from his memoirs, which will only be published posthumously, Bussy-Rabutin maintains a regular correspondence with Madame de Sévigné, born Marie de Rabutin Chantal. If the latter has passed to posterity, thanks to her correspondence notably with her daughter, Madame de Grignon, there is no doubt that the exchanges between the two cousins hold a special place. A woman of wit, the Marquise undoubtedly experiences particular joy in reading the rabutinades of her sulphurous cousin. The two understand each other in a glance and compliment each other very well in mocking others, but she is mistaken in writing to him, "History will do you the justice that fortune has so unjustly refused you." It is in fact he who copies his entire correspondence with the Marquise and archives it, with her responses in particular registers, thus allowing his letters to be saved from oblivion and then published. The glory of the Marquise de Sévigné thus owes much to this great egocentric who, begging her to take care of herself, had written to her, "With whom could I have wit?" There are places that are hardly dissociable from a man and a work, and such is the case with the Bussy-Rabutin castle, in which he undertakes great works of embellishment. He describes thus to his cousin a typical day. "You shall know, madam, that I rise fairly early, that I write as soon as I am dressed, either for my domestic affairs, or for my court and Paris affairs, or for something else. After that I take a walk, I go from workshop to workshop, for I have painters and masons, carpenters and laborers, and then I dine at noon. I eat very quickly. After dinner I hold court with my family, with whom I amuse myself better than with 1,000 visits to Paris. Some time later I return to my workers. The day passes thus in tinkering. Then I sup as I dined, I play, and I retire at 10 o'clock. Nearly 500 paintings and portraits adorn his residence. The gallery of the kings of France, that of great men of war, which begins with Du Guesclin and ends with Bussy-Rabutin himself. Joan of Arc, as a woman, is excluded from it. Moreover, Bussy-Rabutin takes advantage of these decoration works to settle scores. His former mistress, Madame de Montglat, who abandoned him after his court troubles, is represented several times in the Hall of Devices. First with the body of a swallow and the following maxim, "She flees bad weather," then with a mermaid's body and the text, "She attracts to lose," or spreading water on lime, thus captioned, "Cold, she inflames." Finally, appearing on the highest plate of an empty balance with the maxim, "Lighter than the wind." The Sun King is not spared, with this panel depicting the celestial orb and thus commented, "More virtues than light." Bussy-Rabutin is finally pardoned by Louis XIV in 1683, 10 years before his death, and invited to attend his levee. But the court reserves a rather cold welcome for him, so he prefers to return to Burgundy, perhaps finally sincere and reconciled with himself and others, when he writes, "When one does not have what one loves, one must love what one has."